Hello, ladies. So today we're going to continue our discussion and topic around triggers and how to deal with them. So yesterday we talked about dealing with anger and getting out those well, angry emotions and thoughts and using that mental exercise of releasing that rage and anger inside of you. So today we are going to talk about dealing with the stories that come up whenever we do get triggered. So, at the very beginning, I mentioned whenever we get triggered, it causes us to feel an emotion, which causes us to have a certain thought, which causes us to take a certain action, which then produces a whole bunch of different things. But on one of the situations that happens during that process is we tell ourselves a certain story related to and revolving around that particular trigger. So we can use this mental exercise that you see here on the screen to actually figure out, it's really a way to stop ourselves from lying to ourselves about a certain situation and take a step back and figure out a solution where it leads to you no longer being triggered and upset and achieving an outcome that is win-win for everybody. So first step that you want to do with this is you got to figure out what is the situation that triggered you. So you see below, the situation that triggered me was, and you fill in the blank of what it was, the details around it, who was involved, what happened, and why it triggered you. Why did it upset you? Why did it make you mad? Then the second step is, what is the story that is created by that trigger that you're telling yourself or that you're telling other people? And the line underneath the story I'm telling is fill in the blank, and you want to use a 1-2 short little description here. So I'm going to give you an example of something that has occurred to me in my life to just show you kind of how this thing works here. So back when I worked for somebody else before opening up my own gym and doing this business myself, I worked for a guy who he triggered me quite often. And there was a particular time that he challenged my knowledge in front of the entire team of other trainers and employees. And he basically just called me out on something I was trying to teach other people and said it was wrong. And obviously it made me very, very mad, and we ended up kind of arguing with each other, and it turned into a little bit of a heated fight verbally in front of everybody. But the full details of it aren't necessarily important because it's not really relevant now. But the situation itself was a former boss of mine told me that I was wrong about information that I knew I was right about, that I was trying to teach and help educate others. And the story that I came up with at the time, whenever I left work for the day and was driving home, and told myself that he was a giant idiot and he didn't know what he was talking about, and I needed to prove him wrong, and I was smarter than he was, and he didn't care about me, and he wanted to embarrass me so he could look like he was smarter, and he always wanted to show his authority and put people in their place. Like I actually believe these things about this individual. I thought that he always wanted to make himself feel better than everybody else and feel superior than everybody else. And I told myself that almost every single day, and did not like working for this individual, regardless. So the story that I was telling myself was, my boss doesn't care about me or the other employees. and he wants to always put us down so he feels better about himself, because he's actually inadequate when it comes to being a coach and a trainer. And so you see, step number 3, you have to ask yourself a very, very easy question. Is that story true? Is it 100% true? Yes or no? Well, you want to say yes, but in reality, it's almost always going to be no, because the story that we tell ourselves is full of emotions and one point of view, our point of view. So we can't really know if the story is actually true or not. We don't know if my boss wanted me to feel inferior, if he wanted to make himself feel better, or if he truly believed that I was wrong. Either way, the next question you got to ask yourself is, are you 100% sure that the story is true? If you answered yes, you think the story is true, are you 100% sure? Without a shadow of a doubt, if you went and shared what you were feeling with the other person that triggered you, they would agree that is exactly what's going through their head. Chances are, again, it's probably no. But for argument's sake, if you want to pick yes, you feel like you are 100% in the right here, and everything that you're saying and telling yourself is the unarguable facts, then so be it. Now, the next step is, what feelings come up for you when you believe this story to be true? So if you're convinced that what you're telling yourself is true, what feelings come up? I told myself I really believed that he did not like me as an employee. He always wanted to make me feel like I was less than him. And it made me feel pissed off. It made me feel very taken advantage of and unrespected, or disrespected. That's the right word. And really, those are the big ones, just being pissed off, disrespected, and making me feel inadequate or second-guessing myself. So next, what specific thoughts or desired actions arise from those feelings? So this is the part where you start to tell yourself, well, I feel disrespected, so I want to prove him wrong and give him facts and information that proves him wrong, and I want it to be shown to everybody that I was right. I want him to be embarrassed. I want him to feel inadequate. And that was what I would tell myself, and that's what you're going to tell yourself is, what do you want to happen? What thoughts do you want to take place, or do you want them to have? So once you've come up with a list of your feelings around the story, and then the thoughts or actions that you wish would happen related to that story, next step, number 7, is, if you took a step back, in this moment, what exactly do you want? What outcome do you want for you, for the person, and for the two of you as a unit? So here's where this exercise becomes very powerful. The part where you say, what do I want, that's the part where you get to focus on you, and you get to figure out and put down on paper exactly what your emotions and thoughts and actions and desires really are. The next part, though, is, what do you want for them? What outcome do you want the individual to experience based on this story that you're telling yourself? So for me, I wanted my boss to feel embarrassed. I wanted him to get shown with facts and evidence that I was smarter than him. And I wanted him to respect what I would say without questioning if I was right or wrong. And then the last one, what do you want for the two of you as a unit? What outcomes, what thoughts, what actions, what do you want together? And it kind of forces you almost in your head to think of teaming up with this person to figure out what outcome you want. And it doesn't have to be a positive outcome. If at the time, if I said, I want for neither one of us to speak with each other again because he's a jackass and I don't care if I get fired, because that thought went through my head at one point. Another outcome was I want us both to sit down and figure out why we keep butting heads so we can have a mutual understanding and respect for one another, so we quit having these heated arguments. So you need to write out what you want. You get to be selfish here. What's the outcomes that you just want for yourself? You don't care if anything bad or negative happens to them. What outcomes do you want for that person? And then what outcomes do you want for yourselves as a unit together? Now, here's why this is effective. Next step is, will the current story that you have, that you're telling yourself, will that give you all three of those outcomes that you wrote down? Yes or no? If the answer is no, it's a very clear sign that the story that you're telling yourself is not one that will produce the outcomes that you desire. And if you continue going down the path that you're on, it's only going to set you up to get even more pissed off and frustrated and more triggered, because you've clearly proven to yourself what outcomes you want to happen, and the story that you have right now doesn't align with that. So the last one here, what would be possible if the story that you're telling actually was false? So earlier up here, we asked ourselves, is this story that we're telling ourselves true? Yes or no? And then, are we 100% sure? And we said, yes, we're convinced. Well, now we play devil's advocate. What outcomes, what thoughts, what actions are possible if you flipped this story on its head and it was just a big lie? If my boss never wanted to disrespect me, if he never wanted to feel superior to me, if I changed the story to he wanted me to educate him further because he actually didn't know, whatever it is. What is the possibilities if you reversed the story? And what this does is it just basically allows you to stop your anger and emotions in their tracks, because it's going to be a roller coaster when you get triggered. We experience that roller coaster of emotions, and this allows you to just take a moment and kind of ask yourself, am I actually telling myself the truth or not? Or is my emotions getting the best of me, and am I lying to myself about this particular situation? Or am I exaggerating something about this particular story or situation or trigger that happened? And what we're going to do is this mental tool and exercise is going to pair up with what I'm going to show y'all and teach you tomorrow. And it forces you to look at different points of view to go even further and deeper to figure out if the story that you have regarding a particular situation really is true or not, and how to gain different perspectives so you can actually develop a game plan to formulate the ultimate outcome that you actually want for yourself, for other people, for your environment, family, kids, spouse, coworkers, friends, kind of thing. And it all builds and relates and ties in together. But we have to do this step by step, one by one, and break things down, where yesterday we figure out, okay, how do we get all of this anger and emotion out of us? Because if we keep it bottled up, eventually we're going to explode and say things and do things that we never would have ever done, or that we immediately regret. The next step after you've gotten all that anger and emotion out of you and down on paper is to figure out what story you're telling yourself, what thoughts you're having around that emotion and trigger, so that way we can get to the next step is, we have trigger, emotion, thought, action. Well, this is leading us to the point where now we're at the story, the thought part of it, and next section is, what action are we going to take? And that action is going to be dictated based on the story that we're currently telling ourselves. And we need to figure out what story we want to tell ourselves to achieve the real deep down outcomes that we desire. So that is our video and topic of the day, to carry on to teach you how to deal with your triggers.